Welcome to Notes to My Legal Self. Together, we explore topics of interest to in-house lawyers. Let's begin. Here's your host, Olga Mack.
Oh, hello. I'm so excited to see you. We are a little late, and guess what? We had some technical issues, but we persevered, and we'll do our best to have a conversation. And if it fails, we will do it all over again next time, as we've done it a few times before. Without further ado, I'm going to welcome Nada and Jessica to the stage. Jessica from the phone, and Nada is from her computer. And for those folks who haven't met her, I'll let Nada and Jessica introduce themselves.
Hi, Olga. Thank you so much for having us. It's always so much fun to chat with you. I'm Nada Alnajafi. I'm Senior Corporate Counsel and Lead Legal Ops at Franklin Templeton. I have been practicing in-house most of my legal career, over 15 years now. And my favorite thing about working in-house is being able to work with contracts. So I spend a lot of my time outside of my day job talking about and teaching about contracts and building content about contracts as well. I like to post on LinkedIn about in-house tips, and most recently sold Contract Nerds, which I founded 5 years ago, to DocuSign, and it's been very exciting since then, and partnering with Jessica Nguyen has been amazing. So I'll let Jessica introduce herself.
Jessica?
First of all, this is so cool, Olga. It's my first time feeling like I'm a TV star now, and I'm feeling like it's an unfulfilled wish because in 2006, I was almost casted on Survivor. Olga, I don't know if you know that fun fact. Dreams come true. Everybody, I'm Jessica Nguyen. If you don't know me, I'm currently the new head of Contract Nerds, as Neda mentioned. I'm also the Deputy General Counsel at DocuSign, and I landed at DocuSign by way of an acquisition. I was the General Counsel at Lexion, and prior to Lexion, which was a contract management legal technology company, I was a GC of PayScale, an attorney at Microsoft supporting Office 365 for about 4 years, and had an extensive in-house legal career building legal departments from scratch at B2B software companies. But more importantly, I've been a fangirl of Olga and trying to be as cool as Olga on LinkedIn.
I love you guys too. You guys are amazing. The fact that you're pulling it up from the phone is just fun. And by the way, for folks, if Survivor doesn't work out for you, there's always Notes to My Legal Self. Definitely a place to hang out. Let's have this conversation because both of you have done some incredible things. I love that both of you have background in house lawyering, and that doesn't stop. There's so much more to what you've done and the journey you've had. And I'm a fangirl of both of you as well. So Nada, you are the founder of the Contract Nerds and the company that you started as a passion project. We talked about it before you launched. Lots of cool things happening in between. You continued having a full-time job as in-house attorney, raising 2 kids here and there, building personal brand, all of those things that we do in between. Just for those of us who are trying to keep up, walk us through to those early days, that what they actually look like and the secret for finding time and motivation to keep it all going.
Yes. So fun fact about me, I've actually been side hustling since the day that I passed the bar exam. When I graduated law school in 2009, the economy was terrible. A lot of us remember that. And it was really hard to find the job I wanted. And the job I wanted was to work in-house straight out of law school. So I got other sorts of legal jobs. I was covering hearings for a personal injury attorney. I was working at a civil lit firm. Sometimes the work I did was unpaid just to get experience. Other times I was massively underpaid. And so I would look for and create side hustles, whether it was filing a trademark application for one of my parents' friends or reviewing an NDA for a cousin. I was building my side hustle while I was looking for that full-time job that could make me enough money to live off of. And I've had that side hustle mentality ever since then, where I've always liked to have my full-time job and then something on the side. And I think that's what's really cool about being an attorney, is that we can do so many different things. So early on in my career, my side hustle was usually providing legal services. mostly reviewing contracts on the evenings or the weekends in exchange for an hourly fee. That was like way lower than what a firm attorney would have charged. But it was a good way of me getting that double type of experience in the same span of time. So fast forward to 2020, we're all quarantined, can't leave our houses for a couple months. And I had extra time on my hands, but working in-house for a public Fortune 500 company, I'm not allowed to provide legal services to anyone but my employer. So what else could I do? I didn't really want to work. I just wanted to have fun. At that time, I didn't need to have a side hustle to work, but I started it as a passion project, just went online onto LinkedIn and I started posting about contract tips. And I could see based on the responses and the reactions and the outreach I got that there was something there, that people were very interested in talking about contracts and learning more about contracts. And so that's when I started to build it into a website where I literally just watched a YouTube video of how to build a WordPress website. I stayed up all night building it. And that was the first iteration of the Contract Nerds website. And it just grew it from there. So it started with having a pocket of time available that I decided to fill with this passion project. But as the pandemic ended and life went back to normal and I had my family's growing with 2 kids, time has become something that I don't really have a lot of. So that kind of changes things.
Yeah. That when you discover how to make time, how to create time, let me know. I would love to be in on this secret. Yeah. That's a big chunk of what I would like to figure out. Jessica, you've been a sitting general counsel now for a while. You joined Lexion. I remember the hustle. I was very visible all over LinkedIn. I really enjoyed following that journey. How did you come to the place of the fact that you need to build personal brand, and how did you go about, how did you conceptualize, what were the first steps, and how did you get to be where you are today?
Yeah, actually, I think building a personal brand for me, honestly, was not intentional. It was accidental. And I actually think it precedes, Olga, before the Lexion years. I've been following you before even Lexion, Olga, but when I was a general counsel of PayScale, and there were a lot of new laws at the time about pay equity that were being enacted in Washington and other California and many other states. And so I accidentally started getting asked to join speaking conferences about the regulations and providing actionable tips to the audience, mainly women attorneys, on how to negotiate your compensation package. And then it turns out amongst that audience, people think I'm really entertaining. And then it escalated to, can you just speak at a women's conference? And then can you just speak at a conference? And from there there were accolades, Business Journal Awards for Best Under 40. And what I took away from all that experience, Olga, was I personally have superpowers that I wasn't aware that I had, and that I personally could add value to an organization beyond just back office, legal services, transactional work. That candidly, it seemed, the executive team of a lot of these companies valued more than just legal services when I was a general counsel. And so that kind of just kickstarted, hey, I can do this. And what companies really value is growth, revenue, and brand. So why don't I do this some more? And that sort of opened the gate to, maybe I should take a shot at bet on myself and take a risk on joining Lexion, which nobody has heard of. There was a C-stage startup with about 10 employees at the time. It didn't even have a minimum viable product, MVP, as Olga in the Bay Area and the tech world. And I was going to help them build it and give it brand awareness and see if I could do it. And I did help do it.
I'm curious, let's go into that moment of history. You had a great job at that moment. Here's a great invitation to join a company that may or may not have a product, that may or may not have a future, that may or may not be around, that may or may not be of help,
yes,
may or may not have you be unemployed in about 3 seconds. What was going through your reasonable mind to make a decision of that magnitude?
It's about upside and downside, and also understanding who you are and what fills your cup. And at the stage of the company of PayScale, we were already about 400 to 500 employees. It was recently bought out by a private equity firm at the time. The situation, the business priorities, and it no longer filled my cup. And what filled my cup was growth and building. And the Lexington opportunity, I actually created that opportunity, Olga. I don't know if you know this. It wasn't the founders, Gaurav and Ahmad, reaching out to me. Actually, I reached out to Ahmad, who was the CTO and a former Microsoft colleague of mine when I was a Microsoft attorney. He was one of the AI engineers of a product I was supporting. I reached out to him, one, to get a demo. And so I got a demo from Gaurav, the CEO, and I brought my whole legal team from PayScale. And it was probably the worst demo I have ever seen. The product didn't even work. And so fast forward about 3 to 6 months later, I reached out to Ahmad again on LinkedIn and I said, hey, Ahmad, happy holidays. By the way, you need me. And here's how all the ways I can add value. So to take it back, though, is I evaluated what filled my cup, growth and building. Here was an opportunity to do that because they needed it after the demo or lack of demo that I saw from the CEO. And then I also thought, what's really the downside? Yes, maybe they run out of money in 6 months to a year, but I basically got an accelerated MBA program because I was going to work shoulder to shoulder with the founders to build a company, not just to do legal work, build a product, build a sales function, build a marketing function, a customer success support function, etc. Holistically from end to end. That is an amazing MBA experience. That is the downside. I can always get another job. Now, with that said, I can mitigate risk because I have a spouse who has great insurance and at the time worked for the federal government. So you mitigate those risks. So I could take those risks. Great. Maybe a year, I don't have a job. I'll find a new one. Until then, my spouse has insurance and it got us covered.
I love it. I just love that holiday greeting. Happy holidays. It's getting better at demoing on your wish list. I can make your dreams come true. Great. I love that pickup line. Everybody should receive that.
I'll make your wish. To be fair, I asked Ahmad, what was your reaction to my over a dinner? My LinkedIn message, he was said, Merry Christmas, Lexia. He was actually like super pumped because they were struggling with finding product market fit and getting their name out there and winning over customers. And I was really instrumental to really changing all of that.
Yeah, there is just a massive opportunity and upside in initiating things and asking people out on a date or essentially professional date. And I just love that pickup line that you led with that and it worked out for you. I have a few stories just like that. And I very much believe that if you have an interest, following that is just priceless. Nada, there's a huge difference between a LinkedIn post and even figuring out how to build a WordPress website and actually building a profitable business. The differences takes years and perseverance and a lot of learning and time, lots of time.
Yeah.
So what was the inflection point where you realized that contract nerds could be something bigger than just a passion project, more than a LinkedIn post, more than a website? And then how did you actually get to the point that I can monetize it, I can make it a respectable business? How did you think about revenue and the way to make it much more than a post? And I think I just asked you 10 questions. No pressure to remember them all. And I do expect full answers.
Absolutely. I respond in full stories. So I'll cover the whole spectrum of your questions. So when I launched Contract Nerds in the summer of 2020, it started with the editorial and the newsletter. So I would publish one article a week on the website, and then I would put that article into the newsletter and start distributing it to the subscribers. And I had learned through research early on that emails are very valuable. So you could have a large following on LinkedIn, but it doesn't translate in business dollars because if LinkedIn just shuts down one day, all of your contacts in your network disappear. But an email address, you own it. No one can take it away from you. And so right from the beginning, I started collecting emails. And for a year and a half, it was just me. I would invite authors to write an article. I would edit it. I would publish it on the website. I would put it into the newsletter and I would send the newsletter out. What started happening around a year and a half was two things. There became an inflection of growth where I started to see, whoa, this is really getting bigger, because it was taking up more of my time to respond to people's questions. Messages were coming in. Can you do this? Can you do a webinar? Can you do a conference? I love Contract Nerds. It helped me get my job. It helped me learn how to read SaaS agreements. And there was real value there for others, not just for me. It wasn't just fun for me. It was great for others. And at the same time, someone reached out to me from Lexion, I don't know who that was, and said, hey, Netta, what can you send me your sponsorship deck? We would love to sponsor Contract Nerds. And I was like, what is a sponsorship deck? I have no idea. So I had to again look that up. And then I understood, okay, legal tech vendors are willing to pay money to communities and organizations to reach and engage my audience in exchange back for an email list or clicks. And so I started to ask a few people around, and I built a very simple newsletter sponsorship program, and I didn't know what to price it. And I went so low. I'm going to tell everybody, I went as low as $500 a month. And Jessica was like, we'll take half a year. I was like,
I'm sorry, I'm
way
an
too low.
and a mentor.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, I think I priced it too low. But that's with business, you A/B test so much. Pricing, scoping, the services you offer. And that's what I did. And I was excited about this opportunity because in my head, I still wasn't seeing it as a business. I saw it as money to fund the things that I wanted to do to add on to Contract Nerds. Like maybe I can hire a social media person to help me out so that it's not just me posting on social media, because I do have a full-time job and other things. And I felt like I was getting behind of all the things that I could do. And so once I started making that income, I started putting it back into growing Contract Nerds. And I never took any money out from the business. I always would put the money back into the business to grow it and improve it. And so maybe after a few months of running the sponsorship program, I was like, oh, I bet this vendor, I bet that legal tech CEO, I bet these people would also want to sponsor. So I started to send my deck out. And that's when it became, in my opinion, a real business, which was about 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years after running it as a passion project.
Jessica, sounds like you sent another unsolicited email. Tell us your
I know,
version.
it's so funny that Jessica and I just have so many touch points over the years that Jessica has inspired and supported me, and I hope I've done the same. And like for it to now have come full circle is pretty amazing.
I didn't plan it. It's not like I knew 5 years ago that this is where we'd be today, Netta.
Yeah.
I think she knew. Netta, I think she knew.
No, I didn't plan it either.
Unsolicited emails, I planned, I'm pretty sure. Jessica, what is your version of the story? I'm just curious.
My version of the story?
Yeah.
Of the acquisition?
Acquisition or getting to know Nada. Nada just said that you reached out and asked to sponsor. What was going on through your head when you reached out? What were you thinking?
I was thinking that I think Netta has done an amazing job building a community, and why not? At the time we had Lexion, we were already sponsoring similar communities, with In-House Connect being one of them, ACC events. Why not Contract Nerds? And maybe it was a little smaller than those other communities like ACC at the time, but it was a very targeted audience. And I knew, because I am a community member, how passionate the community members are. Like that's a perfect avenue for Lexion and other similar legal tech vendors to promote their product and get in front of as a thought leader and build brand awareness. I knew she had gold. And we helped build that out. So she sent me a sponsorship deck and I would give her feedback, and that even went back and forth. I'm like, you should highlight X, and this is what sponsors really value. So highlight YZ. Hopefully, not only did I get a good deal, I also elevated your sponsorship program, Netta.
Yes, I gave you a discount because of your feedback. Thank you. Your feedback data. I appreciate it.
Well, I've seen so many sponsorship decks, right, when I was at Lexion, Olga. So I can benchmark what is standard. And we didn't have generative AI at the time to have all that information generally available. So there's probably a YouTube video on it, but I think it's easier to go through me, Netta.
Absolutely. And more fun.
More fun.
You guys are adorable. I just love this. I can watch you interact all day. Uh, Jessica, let's talk business.
Okay.
Better than anyone, that a strong brand can create so many opportunities, and not only to elevate your personal status in the industry, even lead to revenue streams. Why don't you walk us through the different ways lawyers can monetize their experiences, and whether it's in speaking engagement, you alluded to there's value you can add, or content creation, or consulting, or legal advisory work. What is that spread of possibility? How do you approach it? What is it? How do you eat it? And how do you use a personal brand to lead to monetization events?
You just named it, Olga. So thank you for giving me that cheat sheet or that Crip Notes. So here's what I have seen: that yes, you can do the side hustle and do consulting and sell your legal services, but there is a huge demand for go-to-market support. Go-to-market support meaning, how can you contribute to revenue growth, making money? And so what I have seen post Lexion, even while I was Lexion, is I would get outreach, and I still get outreach today, for advisory board work for various legal technology companies, because as you can imagine, there are a lot of brilliant technologists or even business folks who are not lawyers, who have a good idea and can build a great product, but have no distribution channel to get, when their an ideal customer profile / ICP is the legal persona. So someone with your profile, Olga, even yours, Nada, and mine, can really help accelerate and give them that go-to-market strategy. So since the Lexion acquisition, I've been very selective of who I've been an advisor for, but I am on the advisory board for 2 legal technology companies and a flexible legal talent services company called Paragon Legal. And you're probably wondering, wait, flex talent company? Like, Jess, you've never worked at a flex talent company, but their ideal customer profile is in-house counsel. And what better person to have as an advisor on go-to-market strategy, market differentiation, and accelerating growth than someone who had to do that at Lexion, which was in a very oversaturated contract management technology company, and knows deeply that profile very well.
I love it. I love how both of you are approaching the personal brand and the way you think about monetizing it and have a fulfilling career.
Yeah.
But let's now to have a real conversation about time. Because time is something that is scarce. It's one thing to create money that is easy to create on some level. That part about creating time is where I'm still figuring things out. So both of you are doing all of this while having demanding corporate legal roles, whether it's on business sides, on the legal side, or both. So just curious, what have been what have been the sort of lowest moments? Have there been times you wanted to quit, maybe leave that board position, whether it's advisory or fiduciary board? What were the moments of doubt, and how did you persevere? What kind of decisions you made? And looking back, what would you do differently?
Do you want to kick it off, Nada?
Yeah, sure. I love this conversation because I don't think it's talked about enough. That I'll get messages from people, or people will say, how do you do it all? Or this is so awesome. How can I do this? Or what tips do you recommend? And I think that there's 2 kinds of people. There's the kind of person who wants to have what I would say like a great, beautiful, normal life, where you have one job, you finish that job, you get your kids, you put them down, you watch a show, you scroll on the internet, you go to sleep, you wake up, you do it again, it's great. And then there's people.
Is that a beautiful normal life? I don't know if
it's the life I dream about. So that's what I think.
I don't know what a beautiful normal life is. But
so then I think us 3, right? To us, our normal is working on this, working on that. I have an idea. Let me reach out to this person. Oh, what if I can do this? Okay, after the kids go down, I'm going to do that. Yes, I'm going to miss a show, or no, I have to decline dinner with my friends or whatever, but I'm excited about this. And this is where I choose to spend my time. So time comes down to choices for most people. Some people don't have a choice. They have to work around the clock and make as much money as possible. But if you're lucky enough to be in a position in which you can choose how to spend your time, like I was 5 years ago, I very much chose to spend my time on Contract Nerds. And what that meant was that I made a conscious decision not to spend it doing other things. I remember this one moment, and it was not too long ago, where I was working really late at night on something for Contract Nerds that was really important. And I kept telling my husband, can you keep the baby up until I'm off this call? Because I want to put him to sleep. And he said, okay, yeah. And this call is going and it's running 5 minutes over, and I can hear the baby crying. And I texted him, just give me 5 more minutes. And he said, okay. And the call keeps going. And then the baby's crying louder and the call keeps going. And I couldn't get off the call because it would have been damaging to the business. But I also couldn't go put my son to bed, and I was keeping him up. And so he was crying and it was frustrating everybody. So I had to text my husband, like, it's okay, go ahead and put him down. I can't make it. And when I got off that call 15 or 20 minutes later, I was really sad because he was a baby, and I just saw it as, this is the thing that I want to do. I want to always put him to bed at night. And there are these sacrifices that are, if not on a daily basis, a very regular basis, where I had to choose the work, the project that I was building, because if I start something, I'm going to finish it. And when I look back, I understand why. It was a meaningful dedication of time. I was putting that time in the right place. I wasn't wasting my time. But there were also the sacrifices, and it's something that I just didn't want to have to keep always making so many sacrifices. And that's why one of the reasons that led me to wanting to sell Contract Nerds when I did was having that second kid and wanting to be able to have more of that work-life balance.
Jessica, what's your normal, beautiful life look like? And how do you create time?
I can't create time. I question using normal as an adjective for my life, but I will say, I will admit, I think it's beautiful, and I'm grateful for the family that I have. Now, in terms of a hard point, it was probably during the hardest point of my recent career has been actually during Lexion. And I don't actually talk, Netta, I don't think I've ever shared with you. There was a point when I was at Lexion, I think I was traveling 3 or 4 times per month. Olga, I saw you at an event. We went for a walk. It was at a CHIPS event. I was on a traveling circuit as well. And I missed a lot of kid events, and I was feeling very burnt out, and also a little bit resentful that we would hire a lot more marketing folks, and I didn't feel like my workload was going down at all. And so I was just tired. I'm not mad at anybody or resentful, but at the moment, I felt a little bit of resentment. And so that was probably a really hard point. Am I making, not mad at anybody else, but myself? Am I making the right choices and the right sacrifices? Because I can't be there at all times. And so I tried to find that balance by really minimizing my time away from my kids and always being there for the big events, their soccer games, their play, their lacrosse tournaments. So I may not be always there at their practices, or I may miss a few games here and there, but I do try to make the big ones so they know that I care very much. And then when I am home, I talk about it with them. I ask them how they're doing. But you can't do it all. I don't really have a social life unless you are a parent on my kids' sports team or run into you at Costco. My house is always a mess. I need a cleaner not to come every other week. I need someone to come every day, apparently, because there's always something on the floor, or Lego or food. There is 2 sacrifices, 3, if I'm going to be very honest. My personal social life, my home cleanliness and organization, and my physical health sometimes. Which actually, so I can do all these things, Netta. That's the truth.
No, and that is so true. Physical health, absolutely. Until earlier this month, I hadn't worked out in a very long time. And I used to love doing cycling and hot yoga. And that was something that was it absolutely necessary? And my decision was, it's not. I can work out later. Or I love that you want to spend those big moments. And that's really important to me as well. Sometimes I do think about, what are the small moments that I'm missing? There's that guilt whether you're a mom or a dad or a parent, there's always that guilt of what else can I do? Can I do better? But I think about how hopefully my kids will look back and think it's really cool, all the things that I did and built, and understand it and be maybe inspired by it one day. And Olga, you have 2 daughters. They're a little bit older than our kids, and you travel a ton, and you seem to have figured out the time conundrum, but it sounds like
Yeah, tell us the answers.
still
Olga.
challenging. Yeah, do you have the answers?
Are you guys turning on me? Is that what's happening? It's really interesting. I didn't grow up in the United States. I don't think I have to attend every game. I don't think that's what love is. And I had this moment where I was driving with my younger daughter, and I said, I'm not even sure how it came up. My younger daughter is about 15, my older is 17. They're basically adults who roll their eyes when they see me put makeup on. So they now tell me that I do everything wrong. But it was interesting because I semi-apologetically took with your position and said, some moms are better. They go to everything and do everything. And my daughter looked at me like, honestly, like I was on crack. And she said, no, you're the best mom ever. I don't want it any differently. And I was apologizing, and she was confused. I think sometimes we set expectations in our mind what a good parent is. And I look back, I grew up in the Soviet. My parents traveled and had jobs, and I was into a few things, including art and dance and various things. And I remember they never actually went to any of my exhibits. Only the one at the very end, or my recitals. Mm-hmm. And I remember looking back, I never even questioned that. If you ever asked me, do you think your parents love you? I would always say yes. In fact, if I assume everybody loves me, what's wrong with you if you don't? So I actually don't necessarily, I never grew up with expectation that parents have to sacrifice everything to be parent. That I think if you fulfilled person is a better parent than the one who is disgruntled, shows up to every game. So I think it's actually distinct American pressure to show up to every game. And both of my children, my older one is in both varsity teams on volleyball and beach, and my younger one is in golf. So they're actually student athletes. And I actually can see the expectation among parents and coach that, and it's created. And I would say that peer pressure works on about 99% of the people, but Olga. But my daughters will tell me if there's a game that is important to them that I need to be there or drive them or whatever. And they will actually explicitly tell me that some games are not important. I think it's the expectation you create and show folks what it means to be Olga or Jessica or Nada. And for me, I'm not the parent who shows up to every game, but I will show up and do things that matter. And what I find is that showing up as myself is enough. In fact, my children resist when I try to dilute myself to be an average parent that they know in their high school. And so that's, I guess, my answer. Have I figured out how to create time? I'm working on it. That's going to be my next startup.
I love what you said on LinkedIn, Olga, in a comment. You said, what personal systems do you create to allow you to be successful at work? And I have been thinking about that ever since you said it, because when I looked at it, I think I do have a lot of personal systems that help me to be as efficient as possible. To when you use time more efficiently, then you end up getting more time back. And on the one hand, I think that's really good. But on the other hand, sometimes just relaxing and letting life be is a beautiful part of it. But most of the last 5 years has been everything is on the calendar. And I go from here to there and I know exactly what my week looks like. And it's usually filled from morning till night because I had to work a lot and I had to work efficiently in order to have both a full-time job and be growing a company.
Yeah, I find for me, if embrace the life you have and optimize it at that point. So for example, there have been various times where I've been traveling 60-80% of my life. Mm-hmm. You can be upset or only see hotels and airports, and after a while they all look the same. Or I have a massive passion for arts. I like to attend exhibits. I am familiar with many galleries. It's something that art has been a major part of my life and my family since I've been growing up. And it's a talent that I've cultivated and developed. What travel allowed me to do for business or pleasure is actually expand my passion for art. And so now if I have a Google map where basically I put hearts to every gallery I ever go or every
Oh,
I think is an
cool.
art experience. So if you ever open my Google map, you'll see lots of hearts. And I call it a world full of love. Love is everywhere. It could be with your cats, with your dogs, with your spouse, with your children, with art. And what I find is that this is a stage of my life where I travel a lot. Or this is a stage of my life we have to stay at home and we're quarantining. Making the best, instead of trying to change the circumstance, lean into circumstance and find the beauty in it, find the love in it, find the optimization that fulfills you. And for me, going with that flow has been a reframing, allowing me to what I think is actually a full life and opportunities that I may not have otherwise.
Oh,
love
Olga,
that.
I love that. I didn't do anything like that. Mine is like, I get to download all the trashy TV that I don't get to watch with my family. But what I've learned is do not watch certain shows on the airplane because it's a little embarrassing with the person. Yeah. But now I need to do like a little heart map now. All right, that's a pro tip. Much more PG. Much more PG.
I gave up of performing and living impression a long time ago. Life is much easier that way when you just show up as yourself. And if I happen to watch a movie that doesn't please my neighbor can close his eyes. There's always that option.
I love what you said. I'm gonna write it down. Is I assume everybody loves me and showing up as yourself. One of the when I saw the questions you shared with us, Olga, today, I think what has made Netta and myself successful is how we show up. I think everybody online live now or follows us on LinkedIn and goes to our webinars know that Netta and I are very genuine, authentic people. And it's not about what law school we went to, what ranking we were in law school or law review. It's about who we are as humans and our care. We embrace our imperfections and we share our knowledge generously and our passions generously.
Absolutely. I love that.
And hence why we're friends.
Yes. Yes. I think that's where people say, how can I grow a following or how can I do this? It's first think about what you can offer and give to people before you think about how much money you can make or how many people will follow you. Is what value do you have that you can share with others first? And the rest of it follows from that generosity and that sort of like open public service kind of way of thinking, as opposed to, I want to make millions. What product should I build? I think it's a very different mindset when you're looking at personal branding versus building a product or something like that.
Yeah. For me, building is a passion, and who I'm doing it with is for is even more important because I think there's an infinite opportunity to make money in the world. I love Jessica's observations. I could get a job. Of course, I can get a job, but can I get a job that creates something that hasn't existed before, that will change the world for the better, that will give me an opportunity to grow as a person and not be the same? And I think that that's the question that I find really interesting. And how can I add value is, I agree with you, Nata, is an important piece of that calculus, because that ability to create something that didn't exist before, I think is so human. And when you lean into it and embrace it, I find it to be very powerful. You attract collaborators, you attract opportunities, you find things, you find courage to ask, to make the first move, to have that awkward pickup line and watch folks react. And then look back at it and say, wow, that was actually pretty cool. And thank God I had courage to make a fool of myself, and I wouldn't be here but for this opportunity. Nata, I want to talk a little bit let's talk about this DocuSign contract nurse acquisition. It's a historic acquisition, very impressive. Well done for both of you. I know you guys collaborated for a long time, been there for each other through various stages of both of your companies. It's beautiful. It really is beautiful. I love the interaction the two of you had when you told that story. And that's why I asked Jessica, what is your point of view? It's the classic way when you ask a husband and a wife, how did you meet? She will tell the story and he will tell a different story. And that's what makes it beautiful. So thank you for playing along.
Our meet cute story.
Exactly. But it is historic acquisition in the sense that it's the first legal tech acquisition of a legal community. And it sets an example of what's possible. It pushes the boundaries. I'm just curious, Nata, you shared how in some ways sacrifice putting your baby to bed to spend time with your other technical baby, the one that you've been pouring a lot of heart and soul into it. What made you want to sell your baby as a founder? How did you even begin thinking about releasing your baby into the wild, entrusting it into other, albeit very capable hands that you know very well, and planning the next stage for that baby?
Yeah, I had been thinking about it for a while because a couple things were happening. Contract Nerds was growing. At the rate that it was growing to be beyond my capacity to run and manage it properly while I had a full-time job. So it was coming up to this point in which I had to make a choice. Do I want to continue working as an in-house attorney, as an employee in my professional career and practicing law? Or do I want to quit that and move into business ownership, running and operating communities, and more on that side? And for 5 years, I didn't have to make a choice. I was able to do both. But it was coming time to choose, and I wanted to get ahead of it. I didn't want to be stuck behind that choice. And I thought about it for a very long time, as Olga, because you're one of my dear mentors. And I decided that it was too early for me to leave the practice of law. I love being an in-house attorney. I want to continue growing in my professional career. And if I were to step out and leave, it would be probably difficult to return back. And also that a lot of the value that I give with creating content and being able to offer resources is from my real life personal experience practicing law. And so I thought it would take away a little bit of that value for future business opportunities as well. At the same time, I had close relationships with sponsors, legal tech companies, and I was starting to get these questions from them what are your plans for Contract Nerds? Would you consider a deeper partnership? And so I knew that there was an interest in general for having a bigger vision with Contract Nerds. And I had also spent a year before that trying to remove myself as founder in order to operate it as a true business instead of a founder passion project. And so I was doing things already that was getting us to that point. And so a lot of people told me, it's way too early to sell your business. It's only 5 years old. That's very early for a company. But I built that into my strategy as, hey, you get to buy Contract Nerds early on, but here's all of the potential that it can reach. It's just me as a full-time in-house attorney, I have a hard time getting there, but here's a roadmap and here's vision and here's the value that it offers. So that's how I made that decision. But I wasn't in a rush. I was very much taking my time and making sure that I found the right buyer. And so everything ended up working out.
Although, Netta, the story you shared on LinkedIn blew my mind about how one of the other buyers played all these games. Hurry, stop. And hurry, stop. There's a lot of that. Yeah. We weren't like that.
Yes.
That wasn't us, Olga. That wasn't us.
I didn't know what you were talking about.
No, that was not DocuSign. That was not DocuSign. So I ran the entire acquisition myself. I didn't go with an acquisition agency or evaluation company or anything like that. I wanted to do all of it myself. And I knew that I wanted to sell to a company that I already had a relationship with, not to just like a random company. And that was its own challenge in terms of time management, prioritization, because I was operating the company, had my full-time job, and now I have this huge project of selling the company. But there were a few different buyers involved and interested, and through discussions and negotiations, they would just get vetted out in terms of being the company that I thought, oh, this is the one that it's going to go to. And that did not happen with DocuSign. We talk about it online and on your podcast, the in-house podcast, Jessica, but our story really did have a lot of serendipitous moments, a lot of meant to be's, and all of that happening, having those past experiences. It's dating when you go on 10 bad dates and then you finally like get to this day where like they're paying attention and they paid for the bill and they're treating you how you should be treated. You're like, wow, I will not take you for granted. And I understand how special this is.
I think treating you at that stage, how you're treated is very indicative of how you'll be treated during the integration and post-acquisition, which is a process. As it takes time. It's easier to sign a term sheet and an M&A document than it is to integrate the community or any acquired company.
Oh yeah, that's right. And Olga, you would tell me this too, and it's your experience too. Like it's not done when the deal closes. You know, you still have a contract with maybe earnouts or targets that you need to hit, and you want it to be successful. This isn't the kind of sale where it's, oh, I'm closing down my flower shop and someone buy it and then bye, peace out. It's not like that. It's the community means a lot to me. And it was a huge priority that the acquisition would be successful after the deal. It wasn't just, oh, let me like find a way to cash out. It was exactly, the vision I had was exactly what is playing out today.
Yeah, I find acquisition process teaches you more about love than actual dating, because we are sometimes confused butterflies and discomfort and adrenaline for love. That's not love. Love is not supposed to make you feel that way. Love is supposed to make you feel comfortable and certain and warm. And I think when you go repeatedly through various acquisitions, either on either side, you eventually stop craving the adrenaline, the excitement, the butterflies, and you start looking for the long-term partnership, because that's exactly what it is. You only beginning in the conversation, and when you sign, then you have years of affiliations and integrations and an opportunity to make something even bigger. And so I just love how you both shared this story of you talk to different folks and you give them an opportunity to come to get to know you closer. And they reveal themselves beautifully every time they vote themselves out of the island. And you let them do that, because it's better to find the one that allows you to calm down your nervous system and show you what love is and how much more you can achieve together than the one that creates the cycles of adrenaline rush and butterflies. That is absolutely not love.
Oh my gosh, you're so right.
M&A analogized with taught you about love, the M&A process. Oh God, so that's a first for me, but I love it.
Yeah, actually, we've talked about love quite a bit in this, which I think is really beautiful. Fun fact, Jessica, do you remember my Disneyland post where I talked about being at Disneyland and hearing from another buyer, and they gave me like a same day deadline? Yeah. So the person that I called was Olga. And so she knows firsthand that I did have butterflies. My adrenaline was pumping, and I was feeling a lot of things that I didn't like, that I didn't understand at the time. Is this how all acquisition negotiations go? And she was a really great guiding point to help center me, because when you're negotiating on behalf of the client, it's very different than when you're negotiating on behalf of yourself. Your emotions come in, I love my company, I want this to be successful. And that does come in and impact the way that your perspective and the way that you see things. And so folks who are out there also, like who are founders or building your own company and you want to exit, I can't stress enough the importance of having a mentor, just somebody that is there to help keep you on your center, because going through this process is not easy, and you could definitely get turned around and dizzy if you don't have that. And that was Olga for me. So thank you for that.
I remember that conversation. She got up, Olga, I got off the ride. I got this email. My kids are here. I need to respond. And I'm like, no. The only thing you need to do when you're in the freaking Disneyland is go back on that ride and enjoy, because whoever puts you in a position that you have to make a decision, get off your ride, abandon your family in the middle of what, 4th of July?
Great memory.
That is not love. That is not love, friends.
No, Olga, thank you for getting Aneta out of that toxic relationship. No, not a hard to get. Play that game. I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Which is, as a negotiator, you know that. But when you're directly faced and it's for you, and there's no middle person or mediator or representative representing yourself, it's very different. There's the logic side, and then there's the emotion side. And it takes a moment to take a breather and realize, okay, let me see this from the perspective of, if this wasn't me and someone called me and was explaining this to me, how would I coach them through it? So again, I think it's important to have someone like that, because when you really care about your company and if you're doing it yourself. And that's when with DocuSign, it was just nowhere near like that. Everything was really smooth and professional and courteous from the very beginning. And that went a long way to making it just feel right.
Yeah, I love that she did not continue on another roller coaster. I'm glad you guys are together. Jessica, tell us the story of how acquisition happened. I know you and Nada have been friends, and that always helps to lubricate the conversations and propel them forward. But that's not enough to show value to actually have the deal signed. So I am sure there's an absolute compelling other reasons for the acquisition. So I'm just curious, from your point of view, what made you want to champion the acquisition internally? What did you see in Contract Nerds that made you think DocuSign need this, could benefit from this? I want to be part of it. I want to put my reputation on this. And how did you think, because you went through an acquisition recently with DocuSign being acquired, and now all of a sudden you're in a different position, thinking about making a calculus of what are the benefits? Do I want to be involved? How intentionally do I take this on? Do I want to take this burden or pleasure integration? How that calculus was going on in your head, and how were you navigating all that?
I would like to think that I'm super brilliant, but actually, you may have heard the story, Olga, that Netta called me while I was on maternity leave. And I was at a conference at Microsoft, and I called her back when I was in a room pumping milk. So that's a really funny story. But she reached out to me, though, because more for advice about, hey, you've been through an acquisition, and how did this impact your brand, your personal brand, when you sell your baby? So that was really the origin. And I slept on that discussion. And I was like, wait a minute, like a DocuSign could get so much value from Contract Nerds. And so it was the first time, Olga, you're right, where I became the business deal champion for the corporation to buy something. I'm usually been on the other end where I'm the lawyer supporting the deal, etc. So that's fun, actually. I get to write business cases and present to the C-suite about why we should do this. But the deal speaks for itself. There's a reason why Netta had multiple offers. For DocuSign's an established company, publicly traded, 13 billion plus market cap, depends on the day, depends on the macro environment. But for us, I think what you lose sight of as a bigger company sometimes is customer centricity and a culture and DNA of customer centricity that I think startups have a leg up over any large company that you lose sight of. And so bringing Contract Nerds into the DocuSign family really helps DocuSign really understand what the customer wants, needs, etc. And vice versa. It is a nice revenue stream, pipeline growth and opportunity, which is why she got sponsorships so easily. But for DocuSign, though, that revenue stream is very small compared to its overall annual revenue. It is more about how do we integrate ourselves and learn more about our customers that we may have lost sight of as we got to become thousands and thousands of employees. And that is not on DocuSign. That is any large corporation.
I love it. So Nada and Jessica, having gone through several acquisitions between the two of you on both sides of being an acquirer and now being acquired, what advice would you give to a lawyer who is building a business and hoping for a successful exit? How can they prepare the company, how they can prepare themselves for this type of opportunity and adventure and endeavor?
Great question. I have learned that strategic acquisitions will usually be more valuable than just buying the thing or the assets. And so I would say to those building your own company, who are your strategic partners? Who do you have strategic relationships with? Think about it from a bird's eye view. Think about it from different angles and talk to your customers or your business partners about what's valuable about your company to them. And then try to focus your growth strategy in those areas. Don't get too distracted by all the different hundreds of ways that you can take your business. Focus on 2 to 3 core offerings or growth areas. Keep your documents and your legal terms and everything buttoned up and organized. I think one of my strengths during the acquisition process was organization. We were able to get through due diligence very quickly and smoothly because I'm very organized and everything. I knew where to find everything. And as an attorney, you know what questions are going to come up during due diligence. So starting to think ahead, don't wait last minute, because deals do have their own life, their own momentum. And my goal with the DocuSign acquisition was that there would be no hiccups or obstacles coming from me. And so I started organizing and buttoning up the business. I always did, but I started to see it that way even before I started to reach out to companies about the deal and just that prep work. And we talk about that even as an in-house attorney, how important prep work is. I think that. And then also, lastly, I will say, in order to make the acquisition successful afterwards, really think about the who behind the company. So for me, it wasn't just about DocuSign. The who was Jessica. And whether it's a community or a product or a legal service offering, really get to know who's going to replace you, the founder, and the work that you're doing. And sometimes it may take more than one person. Sometimes there's a face to the company, and make sure that's a really great fit.
Yeah, I remember our conversation about the who, because it always came back, but I want to work with Jessica.
Oh,
It did.
It was because we were weighing a few opportunities, and it was always came back, but I want to work with Jessica.
It did.
I'm
Yeah.
flattered because you went on all those dates, Netta, and and you fell in love with. No,
We fell in love.
I have nothing to add, really, except to summarize what Netta you just said. It's all about working backwards from what is your end goal. Is it a strategic acquisition, and who are your what are your exit scenarios, and what? So if your exit scenario was be bought out by a big company, strategic an acquisition like DocuSign, what does a company like DocuSign value? Why would they value a community like Contract Nerds? Set up 3 campaigns or initiatives that help you grow to build what matters to the company. Is it your email list? Is it your LinkedIn followers? Is it your engagement rates? And focus ruthlessly, but really working backwards from that vision, and will help you, because time is limited.
Absolutely.
We're coming to the end. It's already gone longer than it usually does. And I did not interrupt you because you guys, as I said, I can watch you both for a long time, and I really enjoy talking to you. But unfortunately, this will have to come to the end. So I'm going to ask you last question before we say goodbye. There is this perception of lawyers being risk averse and not entrepreneurial type, whatever that means. Just curious, what do you think? One, about that generality, and of course, generalities have many exceptions. We happen to have the high concentration of exceptions right here in this conversation. But what do you think about this? And then specifically, do you even think it's true? Do you think that maybe folks who are trained in law, perhaps uniquely positioned to be innovative under certain circumstances? How do you navigate that legal training? How do you lean into that, or how do you lean out of that? Just any thoughts on this risk aversion as a feature, I guess, not a bug, or a bug in the lawyer's brain?
I think there's different types of lawyers, and different types of lawyers have different risk tolerances, but a good in-house attorney understands risk, understands what types of risk are reasonable under the given circumstances, and then understands also how to mitigate the other types of less reasonable risks. And the same thing when running a business, that there's no business that runs with zero risk, but there are lower risk businesses out there, and there are ways to reduce risk. I think that being an attorney makes you an excellent potential entrepreneur because of this understanding, because we have so many tools in our toolkit, because law school trained us how to think and analyze, because working in-house trained us how to work with business partners, how to understand risk from both the business and the legal side. And I think what building Contract Nerds did for me that my day job doesn't do is it allowed me to tap into my creative side. So doing the marketing, and I love going on Canva and making a really pretty image or flyer, I love thinking about how I'm going to frame a LinkedIn post. I like doing stories and having something that grabs the emotion of people in the middle of my post, and having more of that autonomy and freedom to be more myself, as opposed to in the 9 to 5, there's usually more structure. And I think in-house attorneys, really, everyone should be thinking about, what can I build? What can I do? And it doesn't have to replace your job right now. It can be a passion project on the side, or talk to a friend that you trust, do something together. It doesn't have to be a company. It could just be posting or sharing or writing an article for Contract Nerds, or doing a webinar with us, just giving back to the community in one way or another. Find something that interests you and do it. Don't hold back.
All right. The only thing that I'll add is, I think, Olga, a lot of lawyers don't really think about and see the upside. And maybe that's part of our professional hazard. All we're taught is issue spotting and thinking about all the ways that things can go wrong. But there's a lot of upside to building a personal brand. And I don't think that is taken into account enough, the upside. But I do think lawyers are amazing, because as someone who's worked at startups and has had to work with high performers, low performers of different functions, from sales, marketing to engineers, lawyers have an incredible work ethic that is unparalleled to almost any other function that I've ever seen. And we are amazing communicators and have more affinity for community than any other function that I've ever seen. In terms of, the sales community or marketing community, there are communities for those functions, but legal, there's a bond. I don't know if it's trauma bond, but we're a bonded community, and we have so much trust in one another that I think is really unparalleled as well. And I just tell the folks, there's not a lot of downside. Sure, there's going to be someone who doesn't like your brand or disagrees with you on the post. Who cares? Who cares? And embrace the upside.
Yeah.
I love that.
So true. I'm still thinking whether it's a trauma bond or
Trauma bond. I know. That's why there's so many great communities. ACC, Tech GC, In-House Connect, Contract Nerds. And I feel like we're more bonded than a lot of those other communities, because I've been to those events for sales folks or for engineers. It's not like legal, and I've heard that from technical folks too.
Yeah, legal is a special place to be. Absolutely. I love that. It's time to say goodbye. And as part of goodbye, before you wave, there's more for you to do.
Oh.
You're gonna give one takeaway for everyone who persevered for over an hour to listen to us. As part of your goodbye, I would love for you to give an actionable insight or takeaway that they can implement today, tonight, tomorrow, to start their entrepreneurial journey or become more creative, or perhaps find courage to contemplate the upside, not just downside. Who wants to begin?
Okay. I talk a lot about taking action towards your goals. So I would say my one recommendation would be to write down a goal, create 10 steps to get there, and then tomorrow take the first step and keep going from there.
I love that. Jessica.
So to build off of Netta, you can just crawl too. You don't have to immediately walk or even run. So if one of your goals, because Netta and I are here, is to start building a LinkedIn brand or following, or build relationships with folks that you admire on LinkedIn, just take action, like their posts and comment on it, reshare their posts with your thoughts, or write a complimentary post and mention me, Nada, or Contract Nurse, so we get alerted of the post and we engage with your post. And then over time, that will snowball, and you'll start to walk and you'll start to run. But just crawl. Just take that step.
Just get started. Jessica, Nada, it's so great to talk to both of you. Congratulations on this beautiful relationship that have been in the making for a long time and for many more years to come. I'm so excited that we finally had an opportunity to have this conversation on the Notes to My Legal Self. I rarely have episodes with 3 folks, because that's a lot of folks. To have an efficient conversation for 40 minutes, which is usually my top, we just did it by about 30 minutes. So thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I very much look forward to your continuous journey and admiring it and seeing how it unfolds.
Thank you so much, Olga, for being an inspiration and all of your support. Really appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Thank you for stopping by. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Notes to My Legal Self. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They are an act of courage. Remember, the future of law is bright. Enjoy your in-house practice. It's an adventure of a lifetime. See you soon.